In this video, I'd like to share with you about the prophetic meaning of the Hebrew year 5782. So I am a pastor who has been studying the Jewish roots of our faith for the last 10 years, and I'd like to share with you about numbers in the Bible. The Hebrew Bible is full of numeric symbolism and plays on the meanings of words, and these word puns often relate to prophetic destinies. For example, Jacob prophesied over his sons, and the prophecies he gave were based on the meaning and the word puns involved in their names. So as we look at the year ahead on the Jewish calendar, the year has got a name, and let's have a look at what that name means for us today as believers. Each letter in Hebrew has a name, has a meaning, and has a numerical value. The year 5782 is symbolized by the letters 482, which is Pei, which has the value of 80, and Bet, which has the value of 2, down the bottom right of your screen. So we are in what is known as the 5780s. So that is symbolized by the letter Pei, which means a mouth. Pei has the value of 80, and it relates to a mouth. It also is the word for language in Hebrew, so it has to do with what we speak and what we say. So last year was 5781, so the first year of this decade of the mouth, and it started off with the letter Aleph. Aleph is the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, and it is a silent letter. So in last year's recording on this topic, I shared that I believed a message for last year was about learning to speak, but first learning when to be silent, when just to listen. So having gone through the year that has passed, and hopefully we have learned some lessons about when to speak and when to keep our mouths shut and just to listen, we are now going to head into 5782 that also has a lesson for us about what to say and what to speak. So 5782, symbolized by the letter Bet. Now Aleph, the silent letter, represents the Father. It carries the meanings of strength. It is used in many of the names of God himself, such as Elohim, it's El Shaddai. It's also used in the word Echad, meaning one. So God is one. So the Aleph points to the Father, but it is a silent letter. And God the Father himself appears in many ways to be silent, and he chooses to speak through his Son, which is represented by Bet, the second letter. With this letter Bet, we get words like Ben, meaning son. And Bet, interestingly enough, is the first letter of the Bible. Now the rabbis have a debate as to why the Bible begins with the second letter of the alphabet. Why not the first? And so they tell a story of all the letters coming before God, and Aleph was silent, but Bet spoke up and said, I want to be first. And so Bet became the first letter, and Aleph was silent. But it's interesting to note that they also talk about that the shape of Bet is such that all the remaining words of the Bible appear to be coming out of it. So you see the arrow I've drawn underneath the first letter of the Hebrew Bible. So Hebrew reads from right to left, and everything else in the Bible seems to come out of this initial letter that is there. And the rabbis say that it all comes out of the letter Bet. Now from a believer's perspective, I believe that the whole of creation comes from him, and that's what they say as well. It all comes from the letter Bet. But what is this letter Bet? I believe it relates to the Son of God. It says in John 1:1 that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And all things were made through him, and without him nothing was made that was made. So that's a beautiful picture of the Son being there in the very beginning, being there in creation. And it is through the Son that everything is made, and the Son is the one who's there at the very, very beginning, and everything, the Bible, creation, it all begins with the Word of God, who is the Son of God, who reveals it to us. So, if this year ahead relates to the Son, then what does that mean? Well, we have learnt in the past year, hopefully, the lesson of when to be quiet and when to be silent. And so now we move on to speaking, but not just speaking about anything. You know, we are in a season in this world where there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of doubt, there's a lot of conspiracies, there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of concern of what is going on. But I believe that we as believers should be different. And what we speak needs to be different from what the world says. We should be talking about the Son of God. We should be talking about Him and what He has done in our lives. We are to fill our mouths with His praise. It says in Luke 6 that a good man brings out of the good treasure of his heart, brings forth good, but an evil man out of the evil treasure of his heart brings forth evil. Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So what is coming out of you and what is coming out of me will reflect where we are at personally. And if fears, doubt and anger is everything that's coming out of our mouth, then there's something missing and something not right in our lives. We need to fill ourselves with God, fill ourselves with His presence, and then out of our mouths will flow His praise. Out of our mouths will flow words about Him and what He has done. In this world that is so confused, that is under such a lot of assault through COVID and everything, we need to have our hearts full and our mouths full of the praises of God so we can encourage and help others who are struggling. What is hidden in your heart and mouth? I want to look at the letter P again. And on the left we've got the letter P, but inside it is actually the letter Bet. It's hidden inside the letter P. And so, in other words, hidden inside the mouth and hidden inside our mouths should be the letter Bet. The Son of God should be there. So sometimes we need wisdom in how to speak, wisdom in what we say. We can't necessarily come straight out and talk about the Messiah, but He still needs to be hidden in our mouth, and we need wisdom in how to speak of Him, but He needs to be there in our mouths, in our language, in what we're saying and what we're doing. Now, this year ahead is also known as a year of faith. So this is the description that rabbis have given as they look at the year ahead. And why is this? Well, it's because it is a Shmita year. Now, Shmita relates to the 7-year cycle in the Bible, where the land was to rest, not to be sowed, no reaping going on by the farmers. And so, can you imagine, right now, in the middle of COVID, in the middle of the financial upheavals happening in this world, Jewish farmers in the land of Israel are believing that God is saying to them not to work the land. It sounds absolutely crazy. But God promises that as they obey Him and follow His way, He will pour out a blessing upon them, and that blessing will see them through the difficult time. I believe that we are right now in a very difficult financial season. The financial effects of COVID are to be felt in the years to come. And we might try our very best to provide our own needs, but God is telling us to do things His way, and we will see Him look after and Him bless and Him see us through to the other side and get us through unscathed. So let me share a story with you, the story of Miut. So in 1951-52 there was a new agricultural settlement of religious Jews in an area called Miut. Now, many settlements of farming communities in Israel at this time were run by people who were secular atheists who didn't believe in God. However, this group of people were Orthodox Jews. They had just started the year before, and now it was a Shmita year, so they had to rest the land. So they rested the land, they spent the time building their buildings, building their homes. They were busy in this year, but they rested the land. But the problem came in the year ahead. Now the problem was this: they needed seed to sow after the Shmita, and they believed they could not use any seed that had grown during the year of the Shmita, during the year of resting the land. And of course, all the seed in all the markets at that time was from the year of the Shmita. They looked high and low, and finally they found in the back of an old warehouse some moldy, worm-infested seed. So they spoke to the owners, and the owners laughed at them and said, "Hey, you can take that seed for nothing." And they spoke to their rabbi, and their rabbi said, "Well, God is able to make this seed somehow sprout." So the Shmita year had now come to an end, and the surrounding farms, run by secular people, all planted their fields at the normal time of August, September in Israel. Yet this community, they waited until November because they had to wait until the Shmita year was over. And of course they still had their really bad seed that they just had to keep in their own warehouse until the time came. Now the seed that had been sown by all the neighboring farms was great seed. However, the usual rains did not come in September. It didn't come in October. And so the remaining farms were left high and dry. Yet this settlement, they planted their fields in November, and the next day the heavens opened up and the rains poured down on the field. And a few weeks later, it began to sprout. And it soon became clear that they would get a bumper crop, and all the neighboring farms really struggled with poor, weak crops for that year. And so this story of the blessing on the agricultural settlement of Komimiut became famous in Israel, and many farmers came to see for their own eyes what God had done as they had followed His ways. So we are now entering a Shmita year, and from a Jewish perspective, the laws of Shmita don't apply to Gentiles and don't apply to farming communities outside the land of Israel. Yet the principle remains of trusting God in difficult times, of following Him even when it makes no sense, of following His commands rather than the ways of the world, and trusting Him to provide. And I believe that is a message that we need in the year that is ahead. In order for us to live this life of faith, we need to watch our mouths. We have spoken about the decade of the mouth, and we need to speak, not fear, not doubt, not anxiety, but speak of our faith in the one who has called us, the one who's got a plan for our lives, and the one who has never left us nor forsaken us. Remind ourselves, remind yourself of what God has done in the past in your life. Speak it, let that word go out of your mouth, and as you do, it helps build up your faith and the faith of others for the year ahead. So let's not speak fear and doubt, but let's speak of the glory and the power of the Son. In summary, last year was about learning when to be silent, which is easier said than done. This year is about learning to speak, but speaking the praises and the honor and the glory of the Son of God. And this is a year of faith, where we need to make sure we speak differently than the way the world is speaking. I am in the process of making a new video on the Shmita year with a lot more detail than I've been able to cover in this video. So watch out for that video, it's coming soon. So please share this video, subscribe and like, so stay tuned for our future videos that are coming soon. And you can also find more resources, and you can support our ministry, support the production of more teaching resources by going to pastorenoch.com.au. Thank you, and God bless you.